So what can we learn from these experts' insights? So, and how can we apply that to a household's finances? So it says here, look, do you have a budget, cash flow, insight, and a balance sheet? And what do you do with your surplus income? I'll actually break it down to, and a question that I often ask clients is, if you had to rate yourself, if you had to give yourself a rating as a household, what type of business would you be? Would you be a Microsoft or an Apple? Or would you be a non-for-profit? So money coming in, but money going out and there's nothing left over. And that's an important question, quite simply because the more money that you're able to make and have surplus cash flow with, you're able to do more things. And think of it from a business perspective. If I've got more income coming in, it allows me to do other things, whether I buy another business, whether I go expand this part or whatever the case may be, but that provides for greater income coming in. And so I go buy another business, that business does well, I get more income coming in, I can buy another one, and so on. Whereas if you're running a non-for-profit, money in versus money out, well, all we have is all we have. And so from a household perspective, it's really important to make sure that we are knowing what comes in and then also what goes out. And that is not the easy thing to do.
Yeah, simply spend less than what you earn and do something smart with what you got left doesn't always be that simple, Tane.
Very hard to do. It sounds easy, but as an example, businesses use bookkeepers and accounting packages. For individuals, look, from my experience, people just don't have the time. And that is it. With all the things that are going on around the world, even lockdown and things like that, last thing that people want to really be doing is sitting down and saying, well, okay, look, I've spent, $1,500 in this last week, and I had, $1,700 come in. Okay, I'm up by $200. Right? People don't want to do that. So where we can help from an advice perspective and a strategy perspective, especially if I'm talking about, whether it be KP, so Katrina, Joel, Trevor, is that they can assist you with that from a budgeting perspective and say, well, okay, look, you just provide us the data. Okay, we'll come back to you with the information. And all we do is come back to you with the information. But then we won't tell you how to prioritize your spending. That's up to you. Okay, and so you tell me what's important for you. And that way we can then start planning about where you want to go.
So you can make an educated choice.
Absolutely, and it leads on to the next slide, which is, do you have the financial goals and a strategy map to get there? Dream big, set goals, take action. Look, these are all easy things to say, but it's hard to do, and it's important to look at it and say, well, okay, what is it that I need to put in place, and even getting your financial goals in place. I have flashbacks when people say goals, and I look at financial goals for a living. But I have flashbacks when my parents telling me when I was at school, oh, you got to set yourself goals, and for studying and things like that. Whereas I think what, as advisors, we are now able to do is just break it down even to a very simple and easy to understand language. Look, tell me where you want to be in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. What do you see yourself doing? Where do you see yourself spending money? What are the big things that you're spending money on? And is there anything different?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be more complex than that. And from there, it's about then just asking the right questions. And it's about the advisors then. And look, we've got a very talented group of advisors which will actually ask you questions, and they'll dig in and they'll want to know more about you and want to know more about what you're looking to achieve, because what we do as advisors is we actually work backwards. And so, okay, we know what you want, we know what you've got, okay, how do we make it all happen?
What's the missing bit in between? If I could change gears a little bit there to you, Roy, you'd be having these same discussions with your business owners. You'd be talking about cash flow, balance sheets, three-way forecasting. Talk to me about how that works with your business owners, because I think it's enormously important. If we understand that, we can do that in our own homes as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It is something that we've adopted some time back. We call it the GAP program, Goal
nice.
Assessment Process. And accountants and us, historically, we're working up the balance sheet and the profit and loss. But we now, with our business clients, like to sit down and set out what the goals are. And interesting when Tony says he remembers as a child being told, set your study goals, etc. I remember the same, exactly the same. And even in my first job, which maybe my second job was in the housing industry, and setting the goals within the team was crucial. And then going away and saying, well, guys, personally, set your own goals on what you want out of life. And I remember one of my first listed goals was to buy a brand new car. And, that changed. I didn't get a brand new car. It didn't happen. I think I had maybe 5 or 6 cars before I got a brand new car. And that was that goal back then. But I think the world has maybe forgotten or maybe cliched a little bit about setting goals. But I think it's critical, not just from the business perspective, but the personal perspective. Because when you know your goals, and that doesn't mean just have them up in your head, that's about actually writing them down. Then you know what are the paths I need to take to try and achieve them. We don't all achieve our goals. That's the reality of life. But at least you have them written down and you know what actions you should take.
Yeah. And you do that same discussion with business owners and then track that with the metrics as well.
Yes, the conversation is often what the business goals are, but then we will ask individually with the two owners, and it might be a husband and wife, and we'll ask the husband or the wife first what their personal goals are, and then we shift the focus to the other partner and say, well, what are yours? Because often they're not the same. You know, one partner wants somebody to retire early, one partner doesn't really. We want to achieve another thing. We want to actually go on that overseas holiday. I want him or her to work an extra 2 or 3 years. So it's good to have those conversations at those levels as well.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about that, and one of the biggest hints I've heard people say is have those conversations at home over a bottle of wine, a couple of beers, or a cup of tea, and make sure you're on the same page before you sit in front of the professional, so you can dig deeper and have more wider discussions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Roy. That's great insight. Sorry, Tane, back to you.
You're right. No, and look, and the one thing Roy mentions, and I think we can cover this off there as well, is that the one advantage you have is, whether it be from an accounting perspective or whether it be from a planning perspective, is that you've got someone to hold you accountable as well. The hardest thing with setting goals is you set the goals, and unless you're living them, they're harder to achieve. And so it becomes really important. So as an example, when I know from an accounting perspective, you go in and see your accountant and, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? From a planning perspective, it's no different. You've told me you were looking to do this. When you sit down with me in 6 months' time, hey, look, one of my questions, what's changed? Are you still on track to head down this path? Tell me more about this. And it's easier when you're discussing it with someone and you're getting extra insight into it.
Yeah.
So how can we apply that to household finances? And the other thing that we look at is, what are the potential roadblocks to achieving those goals? And from a financial perspective, are you prepared for the next downturn? One of the things that I will talk about is, there will always be a downturn. If we're talking about markets in particular, there will always be a downturn. Anyone that says it's smooth sailing, it's obviously not. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and there will always be, and there's been books written, scholars have written papers about, greatest downturns and so on. There will always be another one. So if you've missed this one from a buying opportunity, maybe there will be another one. I just can't tell you when.